Hello, my name is Nicholl McGuire, and today we're going to talk about how to go about self-publishing your book, as well as some of the things you need to do once your book is already published. So, first of all, plenty of people since my first book came out, Laboring to Love an Abusive Mate, have asked me questions about getting their own books written. And so, one of the things that I encourage anyone who's interested in writing their own book is to set aside time. You have to set aside time. It's very easy to talk to people and tell them, oh yes, I want to write a book, but are you making the time for it? One thing I'm learning, anytime anyone is accomplishing something, you've got to put your jealous feelings aside. Back before I had my own book, there were feelings I had about other people who had accomplished, and they weren't always the most positive feelings, and some of them were jealous feelings. It was like, wow, she got to do what she always wanted to do, and look at me, I haven't even gotten there yet. Everything happens in seasons. There's a season where people will be successful, and then there's a season where there's a drought and nothing seems to be working right. That's just how it is. So your season is coming. It's just a matter of being patient, setting aside the time to do what you need to do. Another thing I noticed since writing my book was that there are those individuals who will not support you because you are self-published, and not just individuals but groups too. You don't have the name recognition, you don't have the company behind you. None of these things should keep you from writing your book. It doesn't matter if you don't have the company behind you, the famous printing agency, the printing firm, or what have you. It just doesn't matter. Whatever's on your heart needs to be put in print. There is a desire there for you to get your book started. So by God, sit in front of that computer and start writing it. It doesn't matter that you don't have the most articulate speaking voice, because that's what you have professional editors for. And we'll talk about that a little more later. Another thing I notice is that people, once they do have the motivation to write their book, sometimes they want to tell everybody about it. And I don't suggest that that's a good thing to do, because once again, you're running across those individuals who are jealous, and they may not encourage you. They may find every fault wrong with your book. You don't know until you try. We all have things in our backgrounds where we said, you know what, later on we learned we should have never done it. But why sit there and just twiddle your thumbs, and say, well, maybe not. Well, so-and-so said this about it, so maybe I shouldn't do it. Try it, and who knows? It just might be the book that receives the recognition and the fortune that you're seeking. You just never know. So those are my tips in terms of getting self-published and getting the motivation to self-publish. But after you have the motivation, you're going to need to get on the internet and do some research in terms of where to get your book published. There are different companies. CreateSpace.com is one on Amazon that I use. I like it. It's affordable. You also have your vanity publishers out there that cost a fortune, but the material is beautiful, and I have used them as well. There's one in particular called blurb.com, and you put your own book together and then they print it. But let's say you don't want to put your own book together, but you want to get somebody else to put it together for you. Well, that's when you want to research for a desktop publisher, someone who can publish your book. And you'll also want to consider. Now, let's get on to the good stuff, and that is, once that book is already completed, what should you do with it? One thing you'll want to consider is presenting your book before an audience that would be interested in it. If you've done a book about motherhood, then you'll want to be in front of a mother's support group. or a group of individuals at, let's say, a local Tupperware party. Anyone who's interested in that particular topic that you wrote about, those are the people that you will want to present your book in front of. Then the other thing you're definitely going to want to do, and this is something that I do as we speak, and that's keep copies of your book readily available. Talk to people in different stores and tell them about your book and see if they can make some space on their bookshelves for your book. And make sure that you have some business cards, because I have been known to come across people who will say, oh, you wrote a book? Oh, okay, well, that's nice. I want to get it. And this way, instead of standing there looking for a piece of paper and a pen, you can just pop out your business card with your book title on it and where they can find it. Now, back to that topic of professional editors. You definitely would want other eyes to take a look at your book in terms of proofreading, making sure that the details are accurate, making sure there's no confusion in what you're talking about, things of that sort. Now, if you are going to get involved with a professional editor, you'll have to have a manuscript, and going on the internet, you'll find out how to get a manuscript template or manuscript format so that it will be presented appropriately for the editor to make notations. A manuscript is not single space, it's double spaced, and there's 1-inch margins all the way around, and every page has your name and any other information that you might need to put on there, so that if the manuscript should fall apart, the editor can be able to find out, oh, this page 27 belongs to XYZ book by so and so. Okay, moving on. If you decide, let's say that you want to seek out an agent, someone who can be able to really go all out with your book, that would be a literary agent, and usually you do not pay them up front. They get paid based on performance. So let's say though that you present your book to a literary agent and you say, this is something that I really want you to take a look at, and that sort of thing. And they say, oh, well, this isn't what we have in mind for, our agency. Have that tough skin, because there are going to be those people that they're going to look at that book and they're just going to say, I'm sorry, there's just no way, we're going to take on that type of book. Matter of fact, we don't even deal with those types of books. So if that's the case, you move on to the next and the next and the next and the next literary agent, publisher, whoever it is that will be able to get your book into a bookstore or out there on their website or wherever it is that you plan on having your book marketed. The next issue you want to think about is these contracts. Now, some of these agencies that you're dealing with, they're going to have contracts you're not going to know what the heck they're talking about. So get familiar with the terminology that's in some of the contracts and find out if these contracts have anything in them that say that they're going to take your rights away. Okay, some publishers will take complete responsibility of your book. They will say, okay, well, once it is with us, we're going to sell this book here, we're going to print it there, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So make sure that you read between the lines of that contract. Or I should say, if you are going with a traditional publisher, then you're going to want to take a look at these contracts. But if you're self-publishing like I am, you don't need to worry about contracts. But you do want to make sure that you you get your book copyrighted. So that's important. And you can find out that information at the Library of Congress website and learn quite a bit about copyright and other things related to your book is on that site. And the other thing, though, going back to traditional publishers, you're going to want to know what their expenses are up front. There was one company that contacted me. They told me that it was going to cost me $3,000 pretty much up front to get the book printed, edited, and put in various locations, bookstores and so forth. But once I thought about it, and I looked at what they were offering, it was going to cost me even more money though later on, because they were only giving me, I think, less than 500 copies of the book printed. So you're going to have to come back and pay for more books. So you have to know exactly what are all the fees up front for your book to get out there if you decide to go with a traditional publisher. And another thing, which I don't have yet, but I'll be working on as I build up my name, and that is someone or some group that will back you. Someone who will say that this book was the best book that I've ever read and you need to buy it. That helps on the back of your book. I know a person who he decided to go ahead and have some people, well-known people, talk about his book. And so what he did was he took their quotes and put them on the back of his book to help him, of course, build his brand, his name, and of course market his product. Okay, the other thing that I learned with self-publishing is that if you are going to go that route, you really do have to make it look like it came from a big publishing house like a Random House. So, like I said, tap into all the sources that you know to make sure that that book looks as professional as you can possibly get it. You will also need to make a commitment to spend your time and your money, because when I first went into this, I thought that I could actually get involved with a certain group or individual, and they would be able to, do all the marketing for me and all that other stuff, and all I had to do was just, fork over the money. And what I'm finding out is that most of these traditional publishers, they're not going to market for you. You're going to have to get out there and do the presentations, do the marketing on the internet, chit chat with the folks on Twitter, go to the social networking sites like Facebook, and get your name out there. A lot of these companies, they're taking the money, but they're not doing much more but printing your book. Also, you'll want to design a marketing plan, like what I just mentioned. Are you going to go the route of social networking sites to market your book, forums? Are you going to do presentations before various support groups? Will you have various affiliate marketers, people that you know to sell the book for you? Write your book, but don't throw a lot of money out there, here, there, and everywhere, and you know that you don't have the time to do anything with your book, and you're pretty much relying on everybody else to do it for you. That's not very good, and you're not going to move much product if you don't have time, because there will be those times where folks will come up to you and say, well, do you think that you can come to my event and talk about your book? And I remember there was a situation where someone did ask me to come and speak regarding my book, but they also wanted me to have over $800 and some worth of product to give away. They weren't even willing to pay for the product, but they wanted me to speak. And not only that, the speaking engagement they were not going to pay me for. So you'll get people like that, but don't fall for it. They're going to, have your options. Think ahead. Okay, if a person comes to me and they say, well, I want you to come to our speaking engagement, but we're not able to pay you, but we do need your books, then it's like, okay, well, you're not able to pay me, but you're going to have to pay for the books. Or pay me and I'll supply X amount of books for free. So there has to be, some type of plan in advance that you have created when these things come up, and they will. You also want to understand how to, start this business, because that's what it is. It's a business. Every time you publish a book, think of it like, the local Walmart, that's a business. The local Kmart, that's a business. These different stores, they're various businesses. Well, every time you come out with a book title, that's your business. So there are some books where I look at them that I've created and I go, okay, how much money is this particular business bringing in? And we need to start marketing this particular book so that this book can start bringing in some profit. So all of my books, I treat them like individual businesses under the umbrella of my name, Nicholl McGuire Media. So until, I'm making a substantial amount of money, I'm going to have to keep plugging away, keep talking about my various projects, keep coming up with YouTube videos and whatever else I need to come up with, until I see those numbers go up. That's the business side of things. But being that I'm the writer, it's not the fun part of the business. I'm the writer, so I like the fun side of things. I don't like the business side of things. And eventually I'm going to have to get somebody to help me with the business side of things. And then you're going to want to consider getting a distributor. Some, company out there that's willing to distribute your book. And it doesn't have to be the traditional book distributor. It could be the local mom and pop store that, like I said, has an empty place on the shelf that doesn't mind putting your book out there. You can, in this business, the great thing about this business is you can think small as well as large. You can think about the steady, couple $100 or so that comes from one book project, or you can think about the steady, thousands of dollars that come from, another project. But whatever the case may be, understand that your book is not always going to be on top. It's not always going to bring in, the same amount of money all the time, and so you have to always be thinking ahead. You're going to have to create a savings plan, and portions of your profit from your book should be put back into the business for your next project, and then your next project, and your next project. You should never spend up all of the money that you receive from your book sales. Always keep some put aside, maybe for those ink cartridges that you need, maybe for that new software program that you need. Budget your money accordingly when it comes to turning your book into a business. So with all that said, I'm going to leave you with one last piece of advice, and that is that once that book is in your hand, when it comes from the printer, and that excitement is all over your face, and then eventually it starts to wear off, take that time to really think about what you want to do with that book. Because what may have been good for you prior to that book coming into your hand may not be good for you once that book is in your hand. You may suddenly have this light bulb that goes off and you say, you know what, let's scratch the plan for this book that I originally had. Let's try something different. And that's okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I wish you well.